Welcome back, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in. I super appreciate it. This week, we're going to be looking at the second game in the Legend of Zelda series, Legend of Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link. Now, I've had my history with this game. I don't really think it's that good of a game, just from what I've seen on the outside. The footage that you're about to see is actually footage of me playing the game for the first time. But do I actually think it's as bad as I thought in the past? I think you're going to be very surprised at my answer. Here's the intro. Not really much on development except Miyamoto wanted to create a side-scrolling action platforming game, using up and down movements while attacking in mind. The idea was actually supposed to be a spin-off, but ultimately was changed to just become a new Zelda game. Starring a 16-year-old named Link, the game was finished and came out in North America on December 1st, 1988, on the NES. Well, now we can get into the story, which is very much the same as the first game. And again, just to explain it, it's basically just like Mario. This game is separated into kingdoms, and they've been taken over by Ganon. And it's also put Zelda into sleep, and it's up to Link to save these kingdoms and awaken Zelda to save Hyrule, only after taking on himself in a battle of courage. And then the game ends with the world being saved and the credits rolling. Well, wasn't expecting anything really different, to be quite honest. Again, it does work for the NES standards. It's very small, but again, it does work for what it has going for it, as the first 2D Zelda games are basically strictly about gameplay. So the gameplay is actually probably the most unique, not only in 2D Zelda, but most of the games in the series. It's a side-scrolling 2D action platforming game. You have some RPG elements as well. When you're in the field, you can run into monsters and fight them by means of fighting in a side-scrolling fashion. The combat is very simple. You move and you jump and you press B to swing your sword, and use the directional pad to put the direction of your sword, which is not the most conventional way of fighting, but man, from the first game to this game, the control, at least in my eyes, has drastically improved. Just switching from a top-down to a platformer has made a huge difference. And I actually think this game is made to be easier for me because I'm better at platformers than I am top-down games. And I'm not saying this game is not difficult because, man, this game is super difficult. As I still think, though, the first game is much more difficult, this game still has a lot of its difficulties that's shared from the first game. The dungeons as well as the boss designs really do complement each other. And oh yeah, the bosses are difficult, but I do like the balance between easy and hard bosses in this game. But the second to last boss is crazy hard, and the final boss is really easy and it can be beaten by you simply ducking and sitting in the corner. It's a bit ridiculous, but hey, Nintendo wanted it to be about the journey and not the finale. The dungeons and palaces are most amazing and do not take you long with the exception of the final one. But even then, I didn't have too much of an issue with these dungeons. They don't take too much brain power to solve them, and don't have too many enemies floating in them. Graphically speaking, this game looks amazing for an NES game. Really nice colorful sprites with backgrounds that to me makes this game an enjoyable experience to look at. Now musically speaking in this game, it has a great soundtrack. For the simplicity and just overall how the soundtrack is composed, makes everything super awesome in this game. I love the dungeon theme, the overworld theme, the town theme, and the final theme in the Great Palace. This game is very fun, and for the most part, I really enjoyed what I played in this game. Well, to be quite honest, I can't rake the story too far because the story is just as simplistic as the first game. So in that regard, it's fine, but it doesn't fit with me. It doesn't sit the best with me. However, I do think this is significantly better gameplay-wise. Which I always felt like when watching people play this game that I really wouldn't like playing it, but actually I really do think this is the best game out of the 8-bit era. The only real issue I have is that when you die, you get sent back to the first part of the game. As then when you get to the Great Palace, you get sent back to the Great Palace when you die, which is really confusing. Anyway, folks, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode. Stay tuned for my next game, which is A Link to the Past.